Friends, the news on the withdrawal of US waiver for sanctions earlier subjected to countries who are importing oil from Russia and Iran. So, henceforth, importing oil from Russia and Iran by countries like India can attract US penalties. So, definitely, this decision is likely to tighten oil supply to countries like India. So, are we going to hit by President Trump's curbs on Russian and Iranian oil import freedom? So, friends, as you know, at the end of the February, when the war on Iran by Israel and US started, we have been facing global disruptions on the energy flows. So, there was a temporary waiver provided by US for about a month for refiners to buy crude from Russia and later on from Iran. Way back in 2022, on the Ukrainian-Russia war, India became one of the largest importers of crude oil from Russia. Prior to that, as the third largest importer of oil, India importing almost 88% of our requirement of crude oil from different countries. Only a fraction of the oil used to come from Russia. And after this Ukrainian war, we really got into the opportunity to get maximum quantities of discounted crude from Russia. And India definitely benefited quite a lot. But subsequently, there has been sanctions by US and prohibited Indian refiners from buying crude oil from Russia. And later on, the Iran war and the closure of Strait of Hormuz created really a big challenge when the crude oil prices shooted up. And we were trying our best to get supplies from alternate countries. Then in early March, US came out with a waiver on the sanctions from Russia as well as Iran, which really helped us. So after this waiver, India could purchase almost 60 billion barrels of Russian crude. Historically, Iran was also one of the largest supplier of crude oil to India way back in up to 2018. When the sanctions on Iran was subjected. It was almost 12% of our oil imports used to come from Iran those days, till almost 2019. So yesterday there was a news in the media that there is a big tanker which has come with crude oil from Iran and there are no takers. While India already bought a few barrels of crude oil from Iran last month, taking advantage of the sanction waiver issued by US in the last month, this particular tanker which reached the Gujarat port yesterday has not takers, mainly because the tanker was loaded after the US waiver has been taken off. So, India being afraid of sanctions, secondary sanctions and other economic issues with US, there has been some confusion on this particular tanker. So, the last month purchase of almost 4 million barrels of crude oil from Iran, that has happened after 7 years of gap. Of course, many countries, including India, is still lobbying with the US for reinstating the waiver, at least temporary phase. Because the tighter sanctions definitely can put a lot of pressure in a country like India, which is largely dependent on import of huge quantities of crude oil, widening trade deficits, and of course, fueling inflation further. While India has already diversified, we are getting today oil from almost 40 countries all around the world. We are not solely dependent on Russia or Iran to that fact, but then we have to look for more expensive crude. So we'll be spending more money in importing more expensive crude oils from different places. And definitely we'll be missing an opportunity to get the sanctioned oils, the sanctioned Russian oil or the sanctioned Iranian oil. It's likely to get it at a more discounted price. Already there's been a lot of issues, uncertainty with regards to movement of oil through Strait of Hormuz. And since we are otherwise dependent heavily on oil moved through Strait of Hormuz, there is a big challenge for India coming up. Of course, the government officials still maintain that we have sufficient oil stock and we are also well prepared with alternate suppliers. In the coming week, along with the developments of Oman talks and US enforcement measures, we'll wait and watch how much flexibility will be there for a country like India and other buyers in the global market. So this brings us to the main topic of weaponization of oil, which involves utilization of oil supply and infrastructure or pricing as a geopolitical coercion to pressurize nations, influence policies, and create economic disruption. It historically includes, things like embargoes and production cuts, essentially aimed at exploiting dependencies and political leverage. So there are many ways to use oil as a weapon through embargoes, purposeful production cuts, restrictions of supplies, market manipulations, geopolitical leverage. So definitely this is not very desirable, and it's an international concern. So an unfriendly producer can harm other countries, cutting off access to energy sources. So even during war and attacks, sometimes this is oil embargo is being utilized purposefully as a tool, as a war tool, because energy sources are required to support military and national security. So these sanctions also one way of utilizing oil as a tool, geopolitical tool. So let me conclude by saying that there are few countries who are sitting on huge reserves of oil. There are few countries who are able to produce huge quantities of oil. Whereas countries like India, there are many countries, we are heavily dependent on fossil fuels today. If you look at globally also, fossil fuels, which includes oil, coal and natural gas together, currently supply about 80% of world's energy requirements and have been powering economies, world economies, over 150 years and many more years, more than 50 years to come. This is going to continue like this. For fossil fuel is a very critical support to the very survival and sustenance of many countries. So these tools of using oil as a weapon by countries who have some advantage, either having huge reserves or huge production capacities or huge military power, things like that. If they try to do embargoes, production cuts, sanctions and things like that, that will choke the sustenance and the growth and the survival of many countries. So let us hope the world will come out with better solutions and on a more friendly and amicable international togetherness, and come to a win-win-win-win situation for the best utilization and the optimum utilization of energy worldwide. Thank you.